and welcome back to my channel. So a while ago I did a video titled Roasting My Old Art, and that video was basically a collection of pictures that were the most cringy from the time that I was really active on DeviantArt, because that's the era from which I could find most pictures and drawings without having to dig through actual physical folders. This is going to be a compilation of digital drawings that I am actually proud of, that are all from 2010 to 2012. And I gotta tell you, even though it was like 5 to 7 years ago, there's quite a few that I'm still really fond of. And since there are a lot of them, without further ado, let's just check them out and see why I think they're still great. So this picture is one of the first pictures that I've done digitally. The sketch for this picture was done traditionally on a piece of paper, then scanned, then inked and colored in Photoshop. Now this was the point where I had just discovered digital art and the fact that you can actually make art with Photoshop. And I had been using Photoshop previously, but that was mainly for like graphic edits and like fandom related stuff. Like if I wanted to make an icon for a forum or something like that, I would use Photoshop for that. And so this original pony character was one of the first things that I've ever drawn in Photoshop. And strangely enough, this is one of the pictures that I'm still really fond of. Like you can obviously tell that this is not very realistic or very high detail, but it's a cute illustration. Like it still looks solid and the lighting is decent, for the style that it is. And I absolutely adore the detail of the glowing balloon. So this was one of the first pictures that I've ever done digitally, and strangely one of my favorite pictures from my earlier art years. So later that year I got a graphics tablet because ever since I found out that these things exist and that people actually draw on a computer without using a mouse and with using an actual pen, I was thrilled and I absolutely had to have one. And strangely enough, the tablet that I still use to this day is the same one that I had that I got 7 years ago. Wow. That's crazy, to be honest. Shows you just how good Wacom products actually are, in my opinion. So this picture was drawn with a tablet, and when I got the tablet, like there were ideas that I absolutely had to make, and this is basically from like two favorite animes, at least from my childhood. I used to watch Samurai X, or Rurouni Kenshin, as you call it in Japanese, and of course Dragon Ball Z, which is iconic. I used to watch both of those anime when I was a kid, and these two characters were like heroes to me, like my childhood heroes. And of course I wanted to draw them in a battle scene together, so this is like a Rurouni Kenshin and Dragon Ball Z crossover, which I'm still really fond of. This is once again something that I sketched on paper and then traced in Paint Tool Sai, I think. No, it was Photoshop. Yeah, it was definitely Photoshop. I didn't have Paint Tool Sai, or maybe I had it, but I wasn't sure how to use it yet. So this was done in Photoshop, and I'm still really fond of this because it still looks good. Of course, the proportions are kind of off, but the poses are really cool. The dynamic is there, and I think it's a really cool picture. This is another battling, fighting scene, but this time it's with my original characters from like a comic that I was really passionate about creating back then, but I never actually got around to it because, I have this thing where like if I think of a story, my mind is flying faster than my hands could possibly draw, and like by the time that I get to writing or drawing the story, like my mind is so far ahead that I'm kind of bored with like actually writing out all of the details that I've already went through in my head. So like a lot of the things that I come up with don't really get made into actual like works of fiction. But this was definitely a really cool picture, not something that I draw now just because one, I'm not really into drawing like violent fighting scenes, as much, because like I don't really have any stories in my head that will require that. But this was really cool. Like since I was really interested in making an actual manga comic, I thought that it would be great to practice, drawing in grayscale and cel shading everything and stuff like that. And to be honest, like the lighting is pretty cool in this picture. Like, I think there could be more contrast in the grays and stuff like that, but I think it's pretty cool. Once again, speaking of action shots, this is my, back then it was my main original character of that comic, who was supposed to be named Miyako, because like I was a giant weeb and I was obsessed with Japanese culture, and I was making a comic with all Japanese names and characters and stuff like that. But this is, you know, once again, like, her jumping in the air and like doing an action pose. Not really sure about the pose because it's kind of like, you know, kind of robotic, like you wouldn't actually, you know, get that pose naturally, I think. But it was still a really solid attempt at an action image, and for a long time I saw this as my best work, you know, back in, I think it was 2011 at this point. I don't know, maybe like late 2010 and early 2011, I'm not sure, but at that point, like for a long time, I saw this as my best work, and I'm really fond of this picture still. Okay, so this is from summer 2011, and I remember that because I drew like 3 pictures in summer 2011 because I was really busy hanging out with my new friends and stuff like that. And for a long time, I was really not into like painting digitally because, you know, I couldn't find a way to do it accurately, and I really lacked the skills and knowledge on how to actually shade faces that are, you know, semi-realistic, because in art school we were taught how to, you know, draw realistic faces and shade realistic faces, and I didn't really make the connection. I didn't really know how to transfer that knowledge into shading anime faces. So this was my first actually successful attempt at shading a semi-realistic face, you know, so it wouldn't look terrifying. And I know it doesn't look perfect, obviously, but at that time it was a real improvement, and I was really proud of this. So I will always remember this picture as my first successful semi-realism portrait painting. This is a style that I never really did anything in, but once again, I think this was, you know, for practicing drawing in grayscale for, you know, like just in case I make a comic someday, because at that time I still really wanted to make a manga comic. So I'm really happy with this because it's fairly minimal, but, you know, the anatomy isn't horribly wrong, the hand isn't horribly wrong. Well, you know, it's because mostly it's like shaded, you know, with high contrast, and that is very forgiving when you think of it. And I actually quite enjoy the face and like how it overall looks, like the feel of it, and this is one of my favorite pictures to look at. I don't know why, but whenever I see it, I just like looking at it and enjoying myself. I don't know, it gives me like nice vibes. Then there was this picture which I did for like a contest slash event that one DeviantArt Vocaloid fan group was having, I think in like 2011, like fall 2011, and they were doing a thing where every week you draw a different Vocaloid character, and week number 3 was of course Hatsune Miku herself, and since she's my favorite Vocaloid character, like I went really all out with this picture, and I had this idea and I absolutely loved how it turned out, and I'm still really fond of this picture because, I mean, look at the atmosphere, look at the hearts, look at the glow. I've always been a fan of putting tons of luminosity layers in Paint Tool Sai and just having as much glow and fantasy, like glint and shine as possible. And I love the lighting, I love the cloud. The character herself is quite two-dimensional, but this picture wasn't really about, you know, like the details in the character, but more about the mood and the setting and all the hearts and the flowing hair, the flowing pigtails, you know. I'm just really fond of this picture. I think it's one of my favorite all-time drawings of mine. Now, this was in 2012, I think, when Vocaloid released their first Korean Vocaloid, which, you know, the first Vocaloid a voice bank to sing in Korean, and her name was CU, and at first I wasn't really into her, but like her design was really cute, so I drew this picture. And the reason why this picture is so special is because of the lighting and how well I seem to have executed it. Not only is the hand not entirely terrible, but also this is the first time that I managed to shade an anime face so that it would look like, you know, like it would look three-dimensional while still maintaining that cute anime look. Because for this, I wasn't trying to go, you know, with a semi-realistic approach so I could, you know, apply my art school skills on this. I was, you know, just drawing a really cute, traditionally adorable shoujo anime face, and I still somehow managed to, you know, create this shading that made it look real, and also like the body and even like the clothing I think turned out really well. And this was an indication of another huge improvement in my art journey, which isn't as impressive when you look at it, but when you realize what it is, you know, and what kind of a step forward that is, it's pretty cool in my opinion. Now we're getting into the good stuff. So this was drawn, I believe, in maybe spring 2012, and this was probably my first attempt at a fully realistic picture. Of course, there's no face in it, which was a deliberate move because I knew that while I could make the hair look pretty real and I could make like the clothes look kind of real, I knew that like if I would put a face in there, it'll mess everything up. So I drew this girl from the back, you know, as a performer, you know, like, and like don't look at her left hand, okay? Like that your entire left arm is too big, and her hand, like I messed with it so hard and so long, and at the end I was like, just screw it. On the other hand, pun intended, the right hand is like the first time when I properly managed to paint a hand that would look actually real, because, you know, like it's like, you know, it makes sense that a hand would be that way, and it looks good, and the shading looks good. And don't get me even started on the hair. The halo effect is so on point here, and while it doesn't look as realistic as I probably thought back then, obviously, this was still such a huge improvement, and at the time, that was my pride and joy. That was like, I finished painting that, and I was like, wow, I had no idea I could do that. And like, that was like the definition of my highest skill back then. So since that last one was a real success, I have established an entirely new technique for just painting without a line art. Because even if I had painterly drawings before, it was always, you know, like within a line art and stuff like that. But the last picture and this picture really liberated me, and I was really getting to the point where I could comfortably, you know, paint without a solid line art, you know, that would be visible at all times and at the end. This was a portrait of Kagamine Len, and that was, I vividly remember, inspired by another drawing of the same character that I saw somewhere on DeviantArt, and I was like, I want to draw something similar. This was once again like, I surprised myself with this. The hand once again doesn't look terrible. It's kind of weird, but it doesn't look entirely terrible. The fact that he's holding a piece of paper was like, wow, because like if you remember some of the pictures from my roasting my old art video, I really had trouble with drawing hands, not only in general, but especially with holding things, especially like this. So this was a genuine improvement, and once again, the face doesn't look bad. The face kind of looks more real. Of course, the head looks kind of flat because I forgot to add like the whole bump of the head. You know, like I you know, like it's not like I forgot, I just thought it looked good, and now it feels like something's missing. But it's a really cute picture, and like an actually really cute expression, because whenever I used to paint something, you know, without a line art previously, it would usually turn out pretty creepy, and this surprisingly wasn't that creepy at all. So I'm really proud of this one to this day. Now this is a painting based on the little bird from the Black Rock Shooter anime, and like that anime was so on point. Like that is genuinely like from the few animes that I've seen throughout my life, because like I used to be obsessed with, you know, Japanese culture and anime, but I never actually watched many of them. So Black Rock Shooter is definitely up there among my favorites because that was genuinely cool. So this was just a painting that I did of that, you know, colorful bird, you know, with colorful wings, and I think that is genuinely one of the most aesthetically pleasing pictures that I have within, you know, my art gallery. And since it doesn't have really any harsh mistakes that are really noticeable, it still, you know, stands very well against, you know, even some of my current art. Like, I could sell it as a print and you couldn't really tell that this was drawn like 5 years ago. So yeah, that's truly, in my opinion, a picture that, you know, like hasn't lost its greatness throughout the years, because like it's just a bird and a rainbow. There's literally nowhere to mess up. And finally, one of my greatest pictures of all time that actually looks pretty creepy because of the face, because like let's be honest, anime faces with exaggerated expressions are probably not really meant to be colored really realistically and, you know, shaded really realistically, but this genuinely, like, I spent so long on this picture, and like from like the moment that I started, I knew that this was gonna be the greatest picture that I've ever done. And this was once again back in 2012, and oh boy, this is just like, I'm still super happy with this picture, mainly because I have, you know, feelings about it. Like, I'm all sentimental about it because I remember how much this picture meant to me. And, you know, like, even though like I did realize eventually, like, you know, like that face really looks creepy, but regardless, like, it's a really cool picture. Like, I went into detail with this one, and I'm usually not the person to go into detail at all, because like, while I like the look of detail, I usually get really bored if something is really detailed and I have to actually, you know, put effort into, you know, getting all the little details right. But this was one of those rare cases where I actually really wanted to get every detail absolutely right. By the way, I designed this outfit myself. Like, Vocaloid characters have tons of outfits, you know, from like fan-made music videos and like video games and whatnot. You know, like, that franchise is big and every single major Vocaloid character has tons of outfits. But this was the one that I designed myself, and I was super proud of it, and I'm still super proud of it. I think it looks cute as hell. That is probably my favorite picture from the era before 2014. Okay, so this video got super long. I don't know how much I'll be able to edit it down, because I do love talking about art and I do love talking about memories. So when you combine these two things, I will be rambling for hours, to be honest. Anyway, what was your favorite picture from the ones that I showed you today? Tell me in the comments down below. I'm really excited to know. Anyway, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because I post miscellaneous videos multiple times a week. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. I love you guys. Bye!